In this class, let's talk about how to extract a subset of your data based on certain criteria. For example, here I have a sales record. So here we have sales from different products, different regions, by different sales reps, and so forth. So let's consider this example. What if I would like to extract those sales from the East region only? Okay. So you can see this one is from East region, this one is from the East region, and so forth. Okay. So there are several ways to do this. We have learned how to, for example, we learned how to sort data, right? So you can obviously sort this one based on, let me show you. For example, we can choose this column and go to data, and then I can sort my data based on the region name, right? We learned this in a different video. Say I'm going to sort from A to Z. Now these top cells are from the East region, right? So I can just copy down this part of the table, and that's my East region sales, right? But sometimes you might have a bigger table, and so this approach may not be very convenient. And also, for certain criteria, it might be difficult to do using just sort, right? So let's consider a different approach. Let me do Control Z to go back to the original data. So the approach we're going to talk about here is to use the filter tool in Excel. Okay. So again, this is under the data tab. Again, in the sort and the filter section, and then we have a filter tool. Right. So if you hover your cursor on top of the filter tool, you can see that the shortcut for this filter tool is Control-Shift-L. Right. So let's see how we use that. I'm going to select one cell in the table. Right? It could be any cell, right, in your table, and I'm going to do Control-Shift-L. Okay. So after you do that, you can see the title of each column now has a drop-down menu. Right? You have this little triangle next to them. Right? So now my goal is to select those observations where the region is East. Right? So let me go to this column, the region column, and click on this drop-down menu. We have this little menu here. As you can see, basically now it listed 4 different regions. Now you can see that all the 4 different regions are selected, meaning right now the entire table is selected. So if I just want to select those observations from the East, I can uncheck these other 3 regions. Right? So now only the East region is checked. I click OK. Now you can see that only the East region observations are kept in this current table. Okay. So suppose you want to, one thing you want to pay attention to is, right now the entire table is still here. It's just that only the observations from the East are shown. Okay. So if you want to create a separate table that only contains the observation from the East, then you can always do, remember we have the shortcut Control-A to select the whole table. Here you're only selecting the observations from the East, and then we can do Control-C to copy them, and then I can start a new spreadsheet and put the observation from the East in this new spreadsheet. Right? You can see everything's from the East. Okay. So what if I want to go back to show the full table? Then here you can see that because now we apply the filter to this column, the symbol here is different from the rest of symbols, right? The rest of symbols are just little triangles, right? So now you have this filter sign. So you click on that again, and click on Select All. Now everything will be selected. Click OK. We got our table back, right? So that's how we use the filter tool in Excel to extract observations. So now let's try something else. So what if I want to look at those sales to those customers whose name starts with T, right, with letter T? So let's go to this column and click on this menu. Okay. Of course, in this case, you can just scroll down your list here. So this is the list of all the customers in this table, and choose those whose name starts with a T, right? But there's a better way to do this. Look at this item. It says text filters. right? So if you put your cursor on text filters, and you will have to see this menu, right? So this menu will allow you to choose different criteria. For example, you can choose those names that are equal to a particular string or not equal to a particular string, meaning you want to exclude some string, right? Or you may want to choose your names that start with something or end with something, or a name that contains something, right? Or not contain something. So let's choose this begin with. So name, customer name begin with, let's say, letter T, okay, and click OK. Now you can see that we only have the sales to those customers whose name begins with T, right? Again, if you want, you can copy this part of the table to some other places for a record. Okay, so now let's get rid of this filter here. So again, I'm going to do select all. So now I make sure everything's selected and click OK. Okay, so now we're back in the full table. Those two columns we just dealt with are all character columns, right? So the content are all character strings. So what if we have a column where we have numerical values in the column, right? So let's look at example 3. So let's say I want to extract those sales whose cost is above $350. So here we have a column for sales cost, right? So they have different values, but I only want to look at those records whose cost is above 350. How do I do that? So again, I go to this column, select this menu, and you can see here, because these are numbers, so Excel recognizes that. So now this menu turns to, remember before this was text filter, now it's number filter, right? So number filter, the choices you have here are also different from the text filters, right? So because what I want is greater than 350, so I'm going to choose greater than. So cost is greater than 350. So one thing you notice is that here you can add different, more than one criteria, right? So you can say it's greater than 350. Maybe you also want that to be smaller than, say, 800. You can put that here, right? Okay, so now greater than 350. So I have other observations whose costs are bigger than 350 selected. Okay, again, I go back to select all to cancel my filter. Or also you can use this button here, clear filter. This way you can clear all the filter. There are two different ways. Okay, you can either do select all, or you can do clear filter. Okay, both ways will work. Now we have our full table back. Okay, so these are examples of how to use this filter tool in Excel to select a subsample of your data. Okay, remember the shortcut here is Control Shift L. That's to so if you, after you're done with filtering, maybe you don't want these drop-down menus, you want to kind of go back to the original format without these menus, then you can always select your table and do Control Shift L again. Okay, this way you close your filter, so everything goes back to normal. Okay, so we just talked about how to use the filter tool to extract observations, right? So next, I want to talk about the related topic. So to remember to turn these columns into filters, what you need to do is you can go to you can go to Data and select Filter, right? So there's an alternative way to do this. What you can do is you can select anywhere inside your range, and then go to Insert. Okay, go to this Insert tab and choose Table. So, or the shortcut would be Control T here. So what this does is it turns your range, this range, into an Excel table. Okay, so let's see what happens. So remember, I select anywhere inside the range and the Insert Table. And in this case, Excel will try to guess what's the range of your table. Normally, if your table does not have empty rows or columns, and you can just select anywhere inside the table and then just insert it, and Excel will correctly guess the range. Okay, click OK. So now you can see that our range turns into an Excel table. So again, we see this drop-down menus, and if you click on them, you can see that now the result is similar to what happened when you do the filter, right? So now you can do the same thing as we did before. So then what's the benefit of inserting a table here? So by turning your range into a table, it allows you to automatically update your formulas. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So first of all, let me try to get rid of this table for now. Okay, so if you want to get rid of the table, you just select your table and go to this design. Right? When you select your table, you see this design tab. Right? Click on the design and go to convert to range. Right? Once you convert it to range, Excel will ask you, do you want to convert a table to a normal range? Click yes. Now we're back to the range. This is what we had before. Right? This is not a table. Okay, so for a normal range like this, let's say I want to calculate the sum. Right? So let's say I would like to calculate total sales. So I can use the sum function to sum up all the sales here, right? So this column is a sales column. So I can do Control Shift up, and I can hold down the Shift, because right now it's also selecting the title, which is not what I want. Okay, I can hold down the Shift and use the down arrow to get rid of the title, and close the parenthesis and hit Enter. Okay, so this value would be the sum of the total sale of all the sales. Right? So you can see if you click on that, this is the sum of all the selected sales here. Okay. So let's imagine a situation where this company will keep doing business, and so on the next day, say on the 31st of 2011, okay, we have another sales comes in, which is, just to make this more visible, let me use a big number, which is $10,000. Right? We have a $10,000 sales coming in. So ideally, when we add this new data, then our formula here, our sum, should also include this item, right? So our result should change into 95,000 instead of 85,000. Right? And of course, if you hit Enter, you can see nothing happens, because if you click on this formula here, the range is still this cells. This new cell is not included. Right? So in other words, if you do this normal, if you store your data in this normal range, then every time you enter your new data points, then you have to kind of manually update your formulas to reflect the new data, right? So what if we want to get a new, we want our formula to automatically update when you enter new data, right? So that's where this table comes in. Okay, let me get rid of this first. Okay, I'm going to delete that, and I will turn this range into a table first. Okay, now it's a table. You can see this drop-down menus here. Okay, so now let's see what happens if I do sum. Okay, so I'm going to sum over all the current sales I have. Control Shift up, Shift down arrow. Okay, so I'm selecting this column, but if you read this formula menu here, this formula bar here, instead of saying sum over G2 to G106, 106 is the last one, now it's saying sum table 5, this bracket sales, right? So table 5 is the name of my table here. Okay, if you do the same thing, your name, I think my guess is that your table name will be table 1. Mine is called table 5 because I have inserted other tables before in my Excel. So now it's the number is going up, but yours might be, most likely it will be table 1, right? So this is your table name, and this is the column name in your table. So instead of using a specific range, now Excel is recognizing the column in your table. So I'm going to close that, hit Enter. Okay, so I'm getting the same result as before. This is the sum of the current table, right? So, but what if now I enter a new data point? So on a new day, let's say you can try to update these other things. That's fine. But because I'm only trying to calculate the sum of this column, so I'm only entering a value here. Okay, so 10,000. Okay, $10,000. Let's see what happens here. Now you see, after you enter this new entry, your sum will automatically update to include this new data. Right? So if I click on that, you can see now the range of your sum will include this $10,000. So what if I enter a new data point? Let's say I enter $20,000. Okay. Hit enter. You can see your result will also update because now this $20,000 is also in the same column. Because you're referring to the range by the column name, so whenever you add a new data here, Excel will recognize this new data belongs to that same column, right? So that's later when we talk about plotting and charting, basically it has the same benefit, right? So if you're trying to build a plot or a chart based on a table, so whenever you update your table, then your chart will also automatically update. Okay, we'll see that later. Okay, so some minor points here. So now my table is called table 5. And you're saying, okay, what if I don't like this name? I don't want my table to be called table 5. I want my table to be called, let's say, sales, right? So then you can go to formulas. Okay, go to the formulas tab. And here we have a name manager. Okay, if you click on name manager, then all the table name will display here. Okay, if you have defined multiple tables, then you will have multiple lines here. I only have one table, it's called table 5. So I can click on edit, and now I can change the name, right? So I can change the name to sales, right? Or call it sales table. Click OK. Now my name is changed to sales table. Okay, I'm gonna close that. So if you click on your formula again, you can see that now the formula is also automatically updated. The table name is changed to sales table, right? The column is sales.